All right, we are back for the second installment of Front Porch Grilling with the Mustangs. I am Dylan Larck here, joined by head coach of the Stanhope Elmore Mustangs, Coach Hunter Adams. How you doing, Coach?
I'm good, Dylan. How are you today, man?
Doing all right. Well, just to get started with the last week's game against Prattville, so we were able to talk on the roundtable with Doug Amos about the game. And what were your positive takeaways from this game? Because that's something that we really talked about a lot of.
The kids never relented. They played hard for 48 minutes. It would have been really easy when we got down and gave up some big plays early for them to get discouraged, for them to back off. Our kids played hard for 4 quarters. You know, as a coach, that makes you proud. It's certainly not what we want to be in terms of outcome, but in terms of effort and attitude and the way they handled that game, I was extraordinarily proud of those guys.
And something we talked about last week, going into watching film on Prattville and Pike Road, how Pike Road was able to get a more balanced attack and take on Prattville's defense. But we saw a more balanced attack this past week. Holcomb got to pass the ball a lot more. He got himself a touchdown to D. Barnes. So what went into the week's preparation, getting Holcomb more prepared and more comfortable passing the ball?
Really out of necessity. During the week, you know, we lost Darian Smoke to an injury last week, and he's our number 2 target in the offense passing game behind Jamari Coleman. So we were worried that was going to be hamstrung a little bit, and had to move D. Barnes from running back to the H-back spot to play. And at some point, you know, we just said, hey, we've got to make sure that we execute the entirety of the game plan and not hold back because we're positionally shorthand. And once we did that, and Zach responded well, he actually threw it better in the game Friday night than he had thrown it at practice last week. So I was very excited to see that. And it's encouraging for him going forward, that we can continue to progress in that aspect of the offense.
And you brought up Darian Smoke, a guy we talked about a lot last week. During the Prattville game, we actually saw Joey go into the tent. Do we have an update on JoJo?
JoJo broke his fibia, and he's out 5 to 7 weeks, you know. And hopefully, man, he's a great kid. He plays so hard. He plays all phases of the game. He blocks as a receiver, like just unselfishly, like you love and ask him to. He was getting better at his route running. His hands have become more consistent. So you hate to see that for his senior. Really, really hoping we get him back for the last 2 or 3 games in the playoffs.
And who are some of the young guys or some of the guys that you're wanting to see more from, or we're going to get to see more from on Thursday when we travel to Crampton Bowl to take on?
Yeah, man. Junior wide receiver Jose Sorcia is going to step up. He's kind of been a hybrid tight end outside wide receiver. He's going to be asked to play more out wide in Joey's spot right there to do the same things, to block aggressively on the perimeter, to execute the short routes and the screens in the passing game, and to be a well-rounded player for us.
And something we also talked about with Doug Amos was the second half was the Prattville was shut down by the defense.
Yeah.
Prattville did not score very much in the second half. What happened at the half that shifted for the defense?
It's going to sound really cliche to say this, but I think the game slowed down for the number of young guys that we've got on the defense. You know, when you come out, only 3 of those guys on the defensive side of the ball had ever played in a varsity game prior to this year, much less started a varsity game. And we come out and you're 4 sophomores and a freshman deep on the back end, and they're looking at that big crowd that was there in a big game and a team that's really athletic in multiple spots. And I'll tip my hat to Prattville, like they spun it and they distributed the ball well everywhere. You know, we worked hard to keep KJ Blue bottled up, and we did that for the most part, but they looked to their other options, you know, and early I think it was really fast, and our young guys were big-eyed a little bit, but as the game went on, it slowed down. They started getting more confident in what they saw, and they started playing with a little more confidence in their responses.
Yeah, I remember last week we talked all about how Prattville was how they're gonna utilize KJ Blue, but when the game came around, KJ Blue only got a few touches in that game.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that was our game plan was to make them have to use the other guy, and they used them. They used them well. I've got to tip my hat to them.
Yeah, So Percy Julian is up next, and you have a shorter week to work with. Had to practice on Sunday, and didn't get to practice on Monday, but kind of a shorter week. What kind of went into that plan, and how did the team react to the change?
Well, we found out that we were playing on a Thursday only 2 weeks ago. You know, by chance, when I was checking the official assignments in Dragonfly, nobody from Montgomery had communicated to us in any form or fashion that the game had been moved to Thursday. You know, so there's that. But as soon as we found that out, I went ahead and started telling the guys 2 weeks in advance, hey, game 3, the first region game is on a Thursday night, all right, and Labor Day is that Monday. You need to be prepared to practice that Sunday afternoon and then come in that Monday morning. And they handled, to be such an obtuse week, man, they have handled it extremely well. Participation's been exactly what you want it to be. Engagement's been what you want it to be. So I'm really proud of the guys for showing up when things change. We talk all the time about, you're going to face variables that you can't control what the variables are, but if you control what you can control, then your response to the variables can be a winning response. And so far this week they've had a winning response.
And something that's kind of new to, I guess it's the entire Southeast when it comes to football, the Crampton Bowl has turf.
Yeah.
So what's been the message to the team about having to play on turf? Because I know a lot of players that I've talked to do not like the turf, and I know it's something you got to get really adjusted to before you play on it.
Yeah, a lot of them don't like it. We're blessed to be able to go over and practice at 17 Springs. We're gonna bus over tomorrow after school and go practice on the football field at 17 Springs. It's turf, so that we get a full. We do a simulated game on Wednesdays to where we go through all our situations, all our different special teams, all our sub drills. We're gonna go do our Wednesday simulated game on turf at 17 Springs tomorrow.
And is there a sense of excitement for the team in general, just to not only just play on against the turf field, but play in a collegiate type historical stadium as well?
I think a lot of these young guys kind of don't understand the historical significance and the vastness of Crampton Bowl. The ones that have played in it understand, hey, it's a big deal. Big stadium, big eyes are on you, and it's a big time game. Big region game 1 against a big athletic team. So I hope once we get there and once we walk that field to start off on Thursday that they're all kind of wound up.
And kind of going into Percy Julian, what have you been seeing from film reviews and film study on Percy Julian going into this week?
Man, they're really big and really athletic, and they come out of the box really, really hard. They come out swinging from the opening bell. You've got to be able to answer that with your level of physicality, your level of focus, and your level of concentration. If we if we answer that early, I feel real good about our chances.
And I mean, you saw a lot of. You've had a great season so far out of Jay Stone. Last week was able to get a forced fumble that held Prattville out of the end zone. I haven't seen the official results, but I believe he was.
He was the one that punched it out. Cam Anderson recovered it.
Yeah. And Stone was able to get Player of the Week, I believe, right? I know last time I checked, he was still in the lead.
Yeah, he was. He won the Herald Player of the Week.
And what does it mean just to have players that are playing at the highest level they possibly can, getting to the region schedule?
Man, we've got a ton of guys that are like that are really diligent in their preparation and the way that they approach things. Offensively, you've got several guys that way up front, guys like Mason James and Zay Foxhall on the offensive line, Will Griffin at tight end, Jamari Coleman at wide receiver. On defense, Jay Stone, Cam Anderson, like those guys take every facet of the game seriously and really work to prepare. I can get on Huddle right now and look at it, and I promise you, man, the time they spend on film during the week, will always be within an hour or two of what the coaches spend on the film in the week. Those guys really dig in and do their homework, and that's, it shows in how they play. And having guys like that in critical situations are the guys you need to win big ball games.
And on the offensive side of the ball, we've seen a lot of the 2 running back set playing in the backfield, and a huge run came out of that last week with Arthur McQueen. So are we going to still expect to see that against Percy Julian, a bigger team that's probably going to be focused more on trying to stop the run, or are we going to see more balanced attack going into this week?
Well, we screw it. I mean, we're going to, with the single wing, the 2 running back set that you're talking about, that's a portion of what we do every week. We're going to find out at some point during the game how well you line up to it, how well you fit it, and how well you respond to it. And it's something that you can kind of change the tempo of the game with. If a team isn't gap sound or isn't physical fitting against it, it's something that you can do to change the entire complexity and tone of the game. Other times in short yardage situations, it's a necessity when they crowd the box, etc. But it has to be a part. It has to have its place. I don't ever want to get to a point where we can't run our base offense effectively and have to lean on that exclusively. I want it to be an effective portion of what we do.
And what's the game plan looking like? As we said earlier, down 2 receivers, and Jose Sorsha coming in and Leland Merritt coming in as a freshman. Are there any other guys we can expect to see more of as the season progresses? Because I mean, JoJo and Darian are a massive part of this
well, I
offense.
mean, actually, I think we're going to get Darian back pretty soon. I think he'll be back next week, if not after the bye week at the latest. So we'll get Darian back pretty soon. This week, we're going to have to lean on Leland and Jose, in those spots. Will Griffin with a more vital role at that tight end and H-back spot than it has been in the past. So not necessarily more people, but more reps for guys that have already been getting reps.
All right. And I'll leave it to the floor if anybody has any questions that they want to ask.
A lot of young guys.
Come on.
Any going into region, try to use more guys so in the future you don't have that.
We want to. That's the goal. But, we've got to make sure that they can close the gap. That when the more that we can have that can perform at a 6A varsity level, the better off we are. What we can't get into is forcing guys in the game for the sake of forcing guys into the game that can't be effective. In my head, like what we talked about in Sunday meetings, right now we've got a 6 to 7 man offensive line rotation. I want an 8 to 9 man offensive line rotation. That makes us better. Right now we've got a 5 man defensive line rotation. I want a 7 man defensive line rotation. That makes us better. But I can't just want it. We've got to have those kids grab it and really come up. And we've got some kids that are capable of that. They're really capable of that. And I'm hoping as the start of the junior varsity schedule of live action coinciding with region play can help build some confidence in those guys when live bullets are flying, that makes them more consistent rep in and rep out to be those guys that can play valuable reps, on a Friday night. Because, man, that's one of the things that if you kept a snap count, Prattville played a lot of guys Friday night, and I think that made a difference, And I really would love, as the season progresses and those guys gain more confidence, that we can do the same.
You mentioned the young guys. We got to talk about Tay Lewis last week, who was able to get his first start of the season. He Gabe Lewis moving over to the tackle position. Are we going to see Gabe kind of move back into the end position, or are we going to see a lot more?
That's a situational thing. Gabe fits the defensive front when we're playing a team that's heavy gap scheme run. It's going to run a lot of power. We're going to run a lot of counter, run a lot of ISO. Tay fits it when we're playing a team that's more zone scheme, with the wide zone and the inside zone and the zone read. There's some other guys on offense that can flip over as well. Tyler Barrett's played some defensive snaps. Xavier Foxhall can play some defensive snaps. But that going to that question right there, that makes finding that next tier of guys that much more important. Because if we're going to play guys across the ball and increase their snap count, we've got to find somewhere where we can efficiently give them blows, at critical moments. And it's one of those things where you push kids, and sometimes I know they feel like we push them really, really hard, but it's to get them to that point. It's really to try to get those guys to close that gap, to see what we see in them and get there to where they can be big-time contributors for us.
And we also could see a lot more of Jacorian Smoke as well going in, mixed in with Tay Lewis.
Yeah, we have different personnel packages on defense, and when a team is exclusively 10 personnel, 4 wide receivers and 1 back, no tight ends, when it's a 10 personnel team in long yardage situations, we go into what we call hawk personnel, to where we move a safety to an inside backer and move Smoke down to an inside backer down to a defensive end, just so that we've got a guy that's got a little better speed in terms of perimeter contain right there, because you're going to get pressure out of zero from the other side, right? And so when Cam pushes a guy on the other side of the pocket, we've got to have a guy that can match and contain that edge.
You guys got any questions?
Well, if there's no questions, I'm going to take a minute. I'm going to plug this group of people that's sitting right here. Mustang Quarterback Club's awesome. If you're not a member, I encourage you to join. If you've got a kid involved, or if you just care about the program passionately, they do an awesome job. They keep our kids hydrated at practice every day with Powerade supplies. They feed our kids pregame meals. They feed our coaches on Sunday during meetings. Man, they have a field service team that helps us set up on Friday nights. It makes our game time operations so much more efficient. It's an absolutely awesome group that exists solely for the benefit of the young people involved in our program. And so if you're not already a member, I encourage you to be.
All right. Well, no other questions. Coach, thanks for stopping by.
Man, I appreciate it, Dylan. Always good to talk ball.
Always good. And hopefully going to be able to live stream this game on Thursday too at Crampton Bowl.
That'd be awesome, man. That'd be awesome. I want to talk to you Friday morning. Want to know what up top in the region.
Of course, I want to dream of mine to always commentate a game inside of a college football stadium. So
hopefully you get to, man.
But appreciate it, Coach.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank everybody at home for listening and watching live. We'll be back. I'm not sure when the next one will come up. Being a college student kind of makes it a little difficult, but we'll be back. And, of course, we'll always have Mustang Round to cover this football season.